sei d'accordo. Va bene.
Sì, grazie.
I think we can start. Can you hear me? Good morning, everybody. My name is Arturo Lavalle. I am the director of the R&D and International Relations area of Marconi University. Firstly, I have to apologize that our president, Dr. Alessia Comanni, is unable to participate in today's event because he has to take part in a consultation, in an expected consultation at the Ministry of Education and Research. Anyway, on behalf of him, I'm very glad to welcome you to this interesting event, which addresses a series of themes connected with internationalization in general, and export and international trade management in particular. That we have organized, we have jointly organized with the Institute of Export and International Trade of the UK, and with the support of Manageritalia and the Greenhill Advisory. In this respect, I would like to thank all the speakers who will shortly animate the debate, particularly the team coming from the UK, led by the General Director of the Institute, Marco Forgione, and including Daniela Turicchi, Amanda Lewis, Stefano Facciani, and Oksana Borta. Thank you so much for being here. As we all know, global trade is facing multiple challenges, a series of global and also regional dynamics, such as climate crisis, inflation, high interest rates, conflicts, geopolitical frictions, just to mention a few, are generating a very complex international landscape, which is hard to understand, navigate, and possibly master. Nevertheless, despite those negative factors, which pose downside risks to the global trade and economy, the rapid technological advancements, which are amplified by the acceleration of artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, in addition to the implementation of national, regional, and also cross-sectorial trade agreements, could probably and potentially generate new and diverse opportunities. Certainly, all the actors involved in internationalization processes, strategies, and initiatives, more than before, and in reason of the aforementioned complexity, need to be equipped with the necessary knowledge, abilities, and skills in order to cope with this, with the current and the future scenario. So the meeting will explore these and other various topics. And I'm certain that the attendees will find it highly engaging, not only for the exceptional quality of our speakers, but also because it will be approached from the perspective of two of the world's leading exporting nations, namely Italy and the UK. So I think it's time to move forward with the agenda. So I'll now hand over the floor to Professor Rainer Masera, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Economics at Marconi University of Rome. Thank you.
So it is a great pleasure for me to take the floor. We are at times that my friend Mervyn King, I will make reference to him later on also, calls global uncertainty. We are at times of global uncertainty, and therefore we have to cope with unforeseen events. It was unforeseen that I should take the floor now, but I repeat, I will try to do my best. And therefore I will say a few words of welcome in addition to what you, Arturo, have just indicated. It is an honor and a pleasure to address this conference. Thanks are due to, in the first place, to UniMarconi, to Alessio, who is not able to be with us today, and to Arturo. Manageritalia has had a close relationship with UniMarconi. I'm very glad for their presence and active support today. But it is a special pleasure to welcome the institutional participations which enrich our meeting. I will stop here because it's not my task to make the official thanks to institutional participants. I would like, however, to extend a warm and special welcome to the Institute of Export and to the Greenhill Advisory. Greenhill Advisory has its logo, and its main task is advising clients in our businesses where trust is fundamental. I fully agree with their aims and the way they conduct their business. But I will take the liberty of challenging some of the common wisdoms which refer to the topics I will be considering today. May I introduce briefly myself? I obtained my first doctorate in statistics at the University of Rome. At the suggestion of my professor here in Rome, Paolo Silos Labini, I continued my studies at Oxford University, where I obtained a doctorate in economics with the Nobel Prize winner John Hicks, and became a fellow of my college, Lineker College. Later I decided to go to the Bank for International Settlements in Basel. This is simply to tell you a fundamental fact insofar as I'm concerned. I am an Anglophile, and I deeply regret Britain's exit from the EU. This has a bearing on what I will be saying in a more structured way in a few minutes. I continue to have many friends in the UK. Lord King, the Baron of Lothbury, is one of the most treasured friends. He has recently received in Rome the Bancor Prize, and he regularly comes to meetings on these international topics to Rome, and I go to London. I took, however, the liberty of challenging the Baron Lord King on Brexit. He, of course, took the official view. Brexit is an event which was the outcome of political, but decisions taken at the level of the electorate, and therefore they have to be respected. Of course, I agree with him, but I challenged him by saying that I continue to hope that this exit, this Brexit, might be reconsidered in the mutual benefit of our two countries, because fundamentally this is a loss for Italy, but also, I believe, for Britain. And above all, perhaps, for the European construction, because without an active role of the United Kingdom, we are deprived of a fundamental force in the construction of Europe, which goes back, for those of you who like memories of Churchill. Churchill in Switzerland made a very important speech by saying that the combination of Britain and Europe would bring great benefits to the world as a whole. This event and its unique participation represent an extraordinary opportunity to examine the impact of broad ESG issues, which I have been assigned as my main topic today, and to energy transition to zero carbon sustainable growth. The two things are obviously interrelated. They are closely intertwined. And I will deal, however briefly, given the time I'm allotted, on the two topics. And I would like to ask, I already privately asked him, Arturo, to bring me to order in terms of time, respect, because I don't like to have a watch in front of my eyes and to constrain me at every minute. When he tells me, look, you have no more than 4 or 5 minutes, I will rapidly wrap up my presentation. Right. I start, as I think is according to the schedule, I start with ESG investments, where, and I will take, on both grounds, I will take the liberty of being provocative, of asking you, given the quality, the importance of the participation, to be confronted with the questions which are not necessarily welcomed by everybody, and which may, in any event, merit some reflection. ESG investments. I believe that often ESG was a double-speak of rating and other operators in the system, which created confusion and greenwashing disinformation. Academic evidence offers little evidence of tangible benefits of the trillions of dollars invested in the so-called ESG funds. Unlike credit ratings, ESG ratings are often not consistent across agencies. And I have criticized credit ratings in the past, so I'm not saying that what credit rating agencies did or do is necessarily the best model. Let me briefly touch, because otherwise it might seem that I'm creating false difficulties and problems. Fiduciary responsibility. And I come to BlackRock and Blackstone, that is to say, the main operators in terms of asset management and investment banking, the leading world companies embarking in ESG investments. But in 22-23, they decided that the term ESG should not even be utilized. A key element which had been underplayed is that technological advances to sustain energy transition to zero carbon are not forthcoming at the expected rate. This is not my, it is also my conviction, but I refer to what Fink, who is the the man behind BlackRock, said recently at a global dialogue in Berlin, 2023, the promises of no net emissions by 2030 or even 2050, the other promise that economic growth could be decoupled from energy consumption cannot be respected. And therefore, two fundamental items behind the ESG approach, the Paris Accord, is put into question. But let's go even further. The geopolitical impacts of the new scenario are daunting. BlackRock's chief executive, I already alluded, Fink, decided to write down ESG investments for trillions of dollars. In August 2022, the issue became a political and legal issue, notably in the United States, but also in Europe. 19 US attorney generals wrote a letter to Fink warning that the company's ESG investments appeared to violate the sole interest rule and other key legal investment principles. Some of us will know and understand these concepts much better than I do. But what I indicate to you and to everybody here is that a legal and political debate opened on whether a contradiction existed between statements and actions. This is the New York City Councilor learns in 2022. I cut it a long story short, but I want to indicate to you that the issue is highly complex, and I do not refer to Europe and the EU, not because I am very happy with what is going on here. I believe that also here, and especially the president of the EU, has taken a very lenient approach and promised things which cannot be respected, cannot be conveyed. I come now, and it is strictly related to the even broader and more complex issue of energy transition to zero carbon and to sustainable growth, and its geopolitical and policy implications. I have here, let me, a bit of public relations. I have just published a book with Springer, Monetary Policy Normalization, where I took for myself the task of considering the complex issues which are raised by monetary policy normalization, and above all by the events taking place in the infosphere. Those of you without the book is very expensive, but I can 150 euros or dollars. But those of you who might be interested, I will be very glad to offer an electronic copy of my intervention here, where I draw the attention to the cyberspace and the infosphere. There is no time to enter in these concepts, but they are fundamental bearing for the issues we are discussing, because the infosphere, cyberspace and cyber triad are two components of today's geopolitical events. We do not understand what is going on unless we have a clear understanding of the implications of these concepts. I skip the various concepts of decentralized finance, cyber risks and applications. But I come perhaps to one item which is often not even mentioned: money as a weapons system. In digital societies, money at the global and at the local level is a key concept of sovereignty. Put it otherwise, the evolving concept of digital monetary sovereignty with the central role of artificial intelligence creates inherent difficulties. I raise, it is a contention of mine, but it is of course a question to you all. It is very difficult under these circumstances to attempt to create mutual benefits and cooperation inherent in the usual concepts of international trade, cooperation in the cyber sphere, and the zero-sum game of using technologies advances as a tool for the interest of sovereign states, because sovereign states benefit and use these technological events as a way to affirm their sovereignty and their geopolitical role. Here again, time is running short, and therefore I skip some of the main concepts. But one thing is clear: if you take the United States, the affirmation that money is a weapon and a fundamental weapon of the US government is enshrined in the workings and the functioning of the US Army. So I'm not considering things which are coming out of the infosphere. No, they are, and there are the references in the papers I mentioned. I have been asked to come to an end, and I oblige. By posing, however, another question to you all. Climate change and international trade are interrelated. My question to you, or my position, is that both events are undermined by something which is not even mentioned many times: state aid. In the past, a person of my age used to be convinced of the fact that state aid and free trade were concepts which did not belong together. But now, nobody speaks about this, but now the reality is that state aid is a fundamental driver of global supply chains, international trade, and so on and so forth. This happens in the EU, but of course the United States took the lead with the Inflation Reduction Act signed into law in 2022, but constantly updated as the US Department of the Treasury indicated just a few days ago. The Secretary, Yellen, says that modern supply-side economics is a way of adopting this concept of state aid to enact a clean energy economy. State aid and clean energy economy are brought together by the Secretary of the Treasury. In the EU, I'm coming to an end. State aid, notably in Germany, has become of fundamental importance. Why in Germany? Well, for two reasons. First of all, because they fundamentally need, in the face of a global restructuring and a restructuring of their economy, which raises many fundamental questions, they need to have a state aid in order to shelter their economy from developments which might undermine the very functioning of the German economy. The Chancellor Olaf Scholz said a few days ago, the German government is massively reducing electricity costs for the manufacturing industry. How do they do it? With the state aid. Is this in line with the concepts of free trade which once we learned and taught at university? Certainly not. Germany decided to shut down all nuclear reactors in April 2023. But nuclear reactors are a source of zero carbon for electricity. And in Germany, coal consumption is increasing rapidly and sharply. And the divide between France, which, as we all know, took a completely different approach to nuclear power stations, and Germany, the divide is increasing all the time. Italy decided a long time ago to abandon the nuclear approach, but now everybody is trying to reconsider simple nuclear power stations, as if it were possible to consider simple what is not simple. So we are in the middle of a complex situation. I tried to be a bit provocative, but I'm convinced that the points which were made have a bearing on our discussions, and I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Masera. As usual, the intervention is inspiring, and of course, also the questions that you posed are very interesting, and I leave the comment on them to our speakers. Thank you also for being on time. Perfect. So I leave the floor to Ms. Alessandra Pastorelli, who is the head of Italian Trade Agency Policy and Supervision Unit at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is it working? Yes? It's for me an honor to take the floor after Professor Masera, and I thank {UniMarconi} for this invitation to give me the opportunity to know such important leaders in the global trade area. And I want to specify, first of all, that I'm not an academic, so my intervention will be quite different from Professor Masera, but I would like to take the opportunity of some of his provocative words to connect my intervention with his intervention. He said state aid and free trade. I agree with you. Everything is at stake. I'm coming from a 4 years experience in the OECD as a diplomat. I'm just back from September this year. And there, the dialogue among different member countries is about talking about economic resilience or economic security. Another new, very new concept in the international arena. So I agree, there are many concepts that I studied in Luis University several years ago, which are reverted in this reality, and diplomats has to cope with the reality. So in my intervention, I will mention some points in describing the international arena today, and then I will go into the more data on Italian trade and how we try to respond to the challenge of promoting exports from Italy to the rest of the world in this challenging international environment. So I believe the current geopolitical environment requires more and more awareness and exchange of best practices. So very welcome this initiative to enhance our capacity to exchange best practices, in this case with the UK, but not only. The convergence of several major factors has altered the course of international trade, from the reshuffling of global supply chains in the wake of the pandemic to the existing competition between the main actors, widening the gap with the less industrialized countries, especially in Africa. At the same time, the rising conflicts and geopolitical tensions in countries in different areas of the world, Europe, or the war in Ukraine, and now the resurging conflict in the Middle East have further transformed the international trade environment and forced us to enhance the capacity of our economies to be more and more resilient. These transformative forces created unpredictable scenarios for international trade, but for which challenges and opportunities we have to take. The resurgence of protectionism mentioned by Professor was the Inflation Reduction Act, but there are many other acts in different countries which generated uncertainty for business. More asymmetric standards and asymmetry in values and value chain reorganizations are challenging our capacity to trade at the international level. So how we can navigate this ever-changing landscape, and how can we identify the opportunities for our economy? We are in the area of remarkable technological advancement, and our Mr. Forgione later will speak more about digitalization. I will touch on the transition to green and sustainable practices and the shift towards renewable energy sources, which I believe present a wealth of opportunities for those willing to embrace them. As predicted by the latest report of the International Energy Agency, the global market for green technologies will triple by 2030, reaching a staggering $600 billion annually. We have to take these opportunities. Different countries put lots of money on the plate. China prioritizes clean technological innovation in its 5-year plan, with substantial investments exceeding $280 billion. But also the EU, with Repower EU, will invest up to 225 billion euros. In 2022, renewable energy consumption increased by 54%. I want to recall this data of the IEA because I think are very significant. Solar energy capacity expanded by 58%, electric vehicle sales rose by 55%, and so on. That means that energy transition is thus progressing more rapidly than commonly perceived. So we don't have the perception, but we are going on with this energy transition and with the green transition. At the same time, this transition poses also challenges. And one of these challenges in the supply chain, for sure, is that most of the technologies and most of the critical minerals are coming from one or maybe 2, 3 suppliers at the international level. On the top of the list, China. So, I mean, I'm looking at reality. We have to look at reality. And this is what we have to deal with in the national global trade. Given this dependency, achieving the necessary level of supply chain diversification is imperative for European and like-minded countries. And I want to underline that. And we are both like-minded countries. So I think there's a lot to work with, together with. To do so, it is essential to look beyond our traditional trade partners, identify new markets that can offer unique opportunities for growth and expansion, and collaboration driven by innovation and prosperity. Italy is actively supporting companies, and in particular SMEs, in such difficult environment through the diplomacy of growth coordinated by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Our ministry acts as a catalyst of all private and public actors or entities, and including the Italian Trade Agency since 2020. In 2022, thanks to these collective efforts also, Italian exports reached an unprecedented milestone, totaling 625 billion euros. In the first 8 months of 23, despite the ongoing economic slowdown and the significant energy deficit we have, exports continue to grow by 2.3% compared to 2022, totaling 415 billion euros. These figures confirm Italy as the 8th largest exporter in the world, the second in Europe for manufacturing added value, with export growth rates in 2022 higher than the major globalized economies. And we hold over 5% of global exports in the mechanical sector and around 4% of global export in trade and environmental goods. Not to mention that our export represents 40% of our GDP, so it's quite a priority for us. On this note, I would like to highlight the role played by the Italian Trade Agency, which under the guidance of which we carried out over 300 initiatives contributing to the success of over 250 trade fairs in Italy and supporting internationalization efforts of over 10,000 companies. But I think we can do much more there, thanks to international alliances and exchange with other agencies in Europe and not only in Europe. The same SMEs represent the backbone, I want to recall, of the Italian economy with a turnover of over 1,000 billion euros, generating nearly 40% of the national added value and employing 1/3 of all our workforce. In 2022, still, ITA also supported digitalization journey of about 2,000 Italian businesses, providing training through programs like Smart Export Academy and establishing partnerships with major global e-commerce platforms such as Amazon and Alibaba and others. Hence, as part of our ongoing effort to enhance the capabilities of companies in this domain, we are also set to expand the so-called Digital Export Manager tool. This tool has recently been developed under the National Youth Funds program and will be continued and expanded over the next 5 years. Finally, regarding destination markets, it looks like the growth of our exports in 23 will be driven by emerging markets, in particular East Asia and Central Asia, which are expected to experience significant increases. And I think also in Southeast Asia, we should find ways to collaborate with other EU partners and also UK, because I think these countries are expanding in terms of the GDP more than ever, and they don't pose the same challenges of the big player in Asia, China. In 24, the focus will also shift to Sub-Saharan Africa and Central and South America. On the other hand, of course, I mean, Europe and North America remain our primary markets, and we have to consolidate as well the position there. So in time of this difficult international scenario, collaboration among nations that share common values, I still believe, is crucial, more than ever. As pointed out in recent works by the WTO and the OECD, cooperation in international trade is more profitable than competition. We have to recall in any seminar this message, I believe. By working together, we can expand trade opportunities, strengthen our economies, and create a fair, inclusive international trade environment. We must recognize that health and prosperity of one nation are interconnected with the well-being of others. And Italy is remain at the forefront of this in this endeavor and is well prepared to thrive in an era of global transition. We are leaders in the circular economy, efficient resource utilization, and sustainability. And we pose the Ministry of Foreign Affairs network abroad of our diplomatic and consular network comprising 129 embassies, over 200 consular offices, and 74 offices of the ITA to contribute to this effort worldwide. In conclusion, international scenarios that we face today are complex with both challenges and opportunities. To seize the prospects before us, we must adapt, collaborate, invest in new technologies, innovation, and skills needed to succeed in this evolving international trade landscape. I thank you very much for your attention and wish you all the best for the summer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Passarelli, even for this overview about the activities and tools and policies of the Italian Trade Agency. Just a very brief input about what you said and the target markets for Italy. You mentioned Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. even in terms of education and our university strategy for internationalization, these are two main target areas. Of course, we should move as a country system approach, and this is what we are trying to do, and later on we are going to talk a little bit even about that. And also another input is a little bit more funnier, because yesterday, so you mentioned the good numbers about Italian export, and yesterday we were talking about the fact that Italy changes government each year, but the economy in any case resists in some ways. And we talked about that even with Professor Masera many times. So thank you very much. I don't know if Professor Masera has a comment on that, or we leave directly the floor to Marco Forgione, General Director of the Institute of Export and International Trade UK. Thank you.
Arturo, thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. I'm delighted to be here with you as Director General of the Institute of Export and International Trade to cement and firm our partnership as we launch a world-leading master's program in collaboration. And thank you also for giving me the opportunity to share a platform with someone as eminent as Professor Masera and with Dr. Passarelli. Just as you are an Anglophile, I hold my hands up. I am an Italophile. And I'm an Italophile by birth as well as by geographical location. In fact, my earliest memories are of visiting Nonna and Nonno in Raiano in Abruzzo, where most of my family still live. In fact, I am the odd one out in the family. That was my father, who left Abruzzo in the 1960s, travelled across Europe to the UK and met a half English, half Danish woman. They married, and I now have 3 brothers located in the UK. International trade is a unique force for good, undoubtedly. Compliant, healthy, free trade is a force for good. If we are going to address the challenges that humanity faces, and we've discussed them, they've been raised already, environmental change, sustainability, health exclusion, access to education, the only way we will do that, is through compliant, healthy international trade. By nation talking to nation, by business trading across borders, by the sharing of knowledge and expertise. And where better for us to be to discuss both the benefits of international trade and the changes that are affecting international trade than in the Eternal City, a location that has stood the test of time but has benefited from the sharing of knowledge through the centuries, through the generations, has learned and accrued global experience to create what is not just a beautiful city, but continues to be a beating heart with regards to the leadership in the world for international standards and international trade. In fact, if we just look up, if we look at the chandeliers here, these could only have been created through the sharing of knowledge and expertise and global insights. And you've asked me to speak about digitalization, and I shall in a moment. But you need to think of the context of digitalization as merely an innovative tool, just as the Roman roads themselves were an innovative tool built specifically to enable speedy trade and the development and accrual of economic benefit and the sharing of knowledge and expertise. And I would suggest that as we sit here in 2023 on the cusp of what will be an undoubtedly transformative year in 2024, that we look back and learn the lessons from our Roman forefathers. So, I have some practical examples of the benefits of international trade, the benefits of sharing of knowledge and expertise. When I was growing up, in order for me to speak to my grandparents, and I grew up in the West Country in England, in order for me to speak to my grandparents, we had to arrange a time for them to be in the bar in the square, because that's where the phone was. And if we phoned and my grandparents weren't in the bar owner clipped the ear of one of the local lads, sent them down to my grandparents' house and brought them up to the square so that we could speak to them. My daughter, aged 23, today speaks to her friends scattered around the globe in real time. That is a transformation in just a very few years. I won't say quite how many years, but I'm sure it's just a few years, and certainly in the epoch of history, it's a very short period of time. That transformation is growing at pace. And all of us are responsible to understand the implications, to adapt to the changes that are being made, and to encourage adoption of that technological innovation. One other example of the benefits of sharing of knowledge and expertise that goes above and beyond the movement of product is olive oil. When I was growing up, when my father first came to the UK, we had olive oil in the UK. It was sold in the pharmacy in small bottles to be poured into your ears if you had a problem hearing. I can rest assured that we use olive oil appropriately nowadays in the UK. The benefits of international trade are so significant that we have to ensure that we have the rules, the laws, the regulations, the processes and procedures that encourage that compliant, global, healthy international trade. All the evidence says, and I'm slightly nervous saying this in front of someone who is not only a doctor of statistics, but studied under a Nobel laureate at the University of Oxford. But all the research shows that businesses which trade cross borders are more sustainable, more resilient, more innovative, employ more people, and are more profitable. If we are to spread the benefits of economic success beyond developed nations into the developing world and the lesser developed countries, we will only do that through compliant, healthy international trade. We have to move away from drawing up barriers to breaking them down. And as a strong partner in the belief that free trade is of benefit and is under immense pressure today, I think it's essential that we take a strong lead in advocating for the benefits of global international trade. Professor, you mentioned that money is a weapon, and throughout history, money has been used as a weapon. We are currently living in a currency war, and a currency war between the renminbi, the yuan, China, and the dollar, and an active attempt to de-dollarize. It would be foolish of me to try and predict where the outcome of that currency war will end, but I can assure you the world of tomorrow will be very different from the world of today or of 10 years ago. We've seen the BRICS with their conference earlier this year in South Africa, a very clear move to de-dollarize from some of the fastest growing economies, with a massive growing community of countries looking to join the BRICS. That is an attempt, a very clear attempt, to move to a different approach to and a different reserve currency and trading currency. The digitalization of currency gives potential for much stricter, tighter controls over individuals and businesses through a social credit score, which we're seeing in China and being rolled out. And I have significant concerns that if we rush to the implementation of a digitalized currency without thinking through the ramifications of that we could very much be learning the wrong lessons from history and taking the wrong lessons into the future. So I posit back a challenge that as fair, honest, open societies that the UK and Italy and our colleagues in the EU have to work collaboratively to establish a new working process and a new approach to the digital currencies that will undoubtedly be coming forward in the coming years. And the pace of change is so great that we need to act fast. ChatGPT, large language model, artificial intelligence, is less than a year old. In fact, I think it was in November last year when it burst through. And look at how that has had an impact. As a small business ourselves, we are having to respond to what that means. As a provider of qualifications and training internationally, we need to be able to respond to ensure that the students who are studying with us are actually learning, and not just learning how to prompt ChatGPT to provide the answers. And that is only going to speed up. So there are significant challenges that we will face through digitalization. I do want to talk about some of the positives, however, and push back on some of the issues raised earlier with regards to the challenges. The EU is introducing CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and over the next 2 years that will become a more formal procedure. Now there is a possibility, and there are those currently who see that as the EU drawing up a fence between itself and the rest of the world. And certainly that's the view in some of the global south and the developing nations who feel that they are being excluded from trade into the EU. And that would be the case if we as nations don't take on board our responsibility to provide those nations with the tools, the knowledge, the expertise to ensure that they are complying with those regulatory reforms and those requirements. And with UniMarconi, the Institute of Export and International Trade, sees we have a key responsibility to provide that knowledge and that expertise. And we were discussing yesterday evening some of the global work that UniMarconi is currently doing and how we can grow and develop that. The deforestation agenda and the recording, 100% the right thing to do. But we're seeing with South America, South American food producers just this week, calling for a pause on the implementation, to give them the time to adapt their processes and procedures, to provide the information, to be able to report compellingly in order to comply with the new rules and regulations. And again, there's an opportunity there for the EU to show that we are not being protectionist, but that we are being inclusive and taking our responsibility to the world and to our environment seriously. And where the EU is leading, I can assure you the UK is following. Yesterday, the government indicated, due to be announced either next week or in March, that the UK will also be launching a CBAM program, but it will link to the timescale that the EU is rolling out. And undoubtedly, Canada, America, and other trading nations will adopt the same approaches. Dr. Passarelli, you mentioned about the fact that China controls much of the rare earth mineral production in the world. That is true. They do. They don't have it themselves. They've taken a very long-term approach to owning the mining facilities in the developing world. And I can assure you, from the work that I've been doing across sub-Saharan Africa recently, in the conversations we've been having, there is a concern that those nations are themselves being exploited currently by the systems, the structures, the processes that the Chinese have implemented, and they are looking for alternatives. And I feel very strongly that there is a huge potential for the US, the EU, the UK to adopt a wholly different approach that is collaborative, supportive, and engages in compliant, healthy trade with those nations to ensure that we have access to those essential commodities that will allow the decarbonization of the world's energy production. That will only be done, though, through the traceability, the tracking capability, and the visibility into supply chains that the digitalization of trade offers. I want to end, if I may, on positive news. The positive news is in the context of we face unbelievable challenges, both technological challenges and economic challenges. The WTO anticipates that global trade will, at the very best, be stressed for the next couple of years, with a possibility of a growing decline in global trade. That cannot be good, for all the reasons I've highlighted before. It cannot be good for global trade to be in decline. The positive is that trade between Italy and the UK increased by just under 19% over the last recorded year. We, our nations, and I to some degree feel I am the very embodiment of a collaboration between Italy and the UK, that we have huge potential. We have huge potential not just to grow trade between our nations, but to extend our networks, to grow trade to the developing world and the lesser developed countries so that they too benefit from economic development, healthy global international trade. But more importantly, that we have a role. We have a role because of our histories, because of our cultures, because of our outlooks, because of our philosophies. We have a role to redefine the world for global international trade, to reset the rules, the regulations, the approach to global international trade. And that is the challenge I said to you here in this room. That is the challenge that we are seeking to address in our collaboration with {UniMarconi}. Folks, tomorrow is going to be very different from today. Let's not shy away from it. Let's embrace it. And let's make sure that as a world we achieve and deliver on all the potential that exists. Thank you, Arturo.
Thank you, Marco, for this wonderful speech, and also for concluding with a positive, approach. And we totally share what you said, and of course we are very proud of this collaboration with the Institute of Export and International Trade. I pick just one of your very, very important sentences, the sentences that you said. So since we are living a constant, rapid technological change, we have to share knowledge and expertise, and this is what we want to do, and this is the objective that we have together with you in order to collaborate for expanding this knowledge and expertise to other countries. And it's true that our two respective countries have a role because of their history, their philosophy, as you said. So we are totally ready in order to collaborate and concretize the objectives that we set together. Thank you. Thank you again. I don't know if you have some comments, since I know that Dr. Pastorelli and also Dr. Forgione, they have to go away. If you have a very quick question or a very quick comment, there is anyone that wants to add something or ask something?
Before she leaves, I think we all agree here on the potential, and we all agree here on the aims. And I don't want to interfere with these manifestations of goodwill, but I would like to stress, notably to you as a representative of our government and our fundamental structure of foreign ministry and foreign trade. The question I raise is this running counter with hard realities or not? And I believe that we must weigh the pros and cons of putting everything as already achieved or agreed. We are here in this room, which is a room which conveys you the idea. The Romans did not build their fundamental road infrastructure, which carried them throughout the Mediterranean and also to the United Kingdom for trade purposes. They built it for military purposes. Oh, no, come on. Otherwise, we don't. This huge infrastructure was built to affirm the Roman Empire and the Roman power. My point is that we must be very careful today, because there are pros, but there are cons. There are contrary and side winds which are very strong. If it were to be true that we are moving forward rapidly towards the heaven of free trade and the zero carbon economy, then the markets would indicate today that hundreds of companies would be worthless. They are increasing in value because markets anticipates. Now all oil and gas companies and many other companies would be worth zero because markets anticipates. And if it were to be true that by 2030 we are moving to a zero carbon economy, oil and gas would be worthless. You know it better than I do, but if you go to, not to sub-Saharan Africa, but if you go to the oil-producing countries, they're thriving as it never happened. The value of these oil companies has been increasing steadily. And there is a race between companies with high technology, which you mentioned, and oil companies. Aramco is right at the center of this fight. So I'm simply saying that we have to be careful in our wishful thinking, because, and I stop here, the idea which the US Army Commander's Guide, an official US document, that is to say, the Army of the United States indicates that money is a fundamental weapon. And the United States will do everything which is possible in order to affirm the power of the dollar and the power of the links between money and the army itself. I stop here, but I cannot but mention that what goes on today in the Middle East is evidence of the fact that we have to be careful in our assessment, because otherwise we run the risk of being falling into wishful thinking, which would be very dangerous, I submit, under current circumstances. Thank you.
Professor, absolutely on the point analysis. The petrodollar, the military-industrial complex in the US are incredibly strong forces at play. That in mind, they are not unopposed at all. And you're right, the assessment of how we address that needs to be done cautiously, needs to be evidence-based, and needs to be done in a very diplomatic manner. But we have also to ensure that we seek to establish a rules-based, fair and open trading environment. And we have the potential, as our nations, where we are located, to help drive that agenda forward clearly. And with regards to the Roman roads, they may well have been built initially to support the military ambitions of the Roman Empire, but very quickly that was left behind, and they were used incredibly for the sharing of knowledge and expertise and for the growing and development of trade. If we look at the formation of the internet, that was a military system that has been transformed and is transforming society. And the future of digitalization, wherever it comes from, whatever the rationale, has the potential to transform society in positive ways, used correctly.
If I can add to this, I very much agree with you, Marco, on that. And at the same time, of course, the comments are well funded. And I guess your question to me was questioning the fact that I underlined very much the tendency of the green transition, but I still think that the tendency is evidence-based. I wanted, in fact, to describe it with data from the IEA, which is an international recognized agency which is monitoring especially energy, where the energy markets are going. And of course, we have to consider energy markets and not energy market of renewable only. So we have to see them in the picture. But the tendency, maybe not intended to be after the war in Ukraine, has been that we had to substitute rapidly this gas. And the fact is that in Europe, it has been done through the green energy transition. And the consumption has gone on in this direction. It doesn't mean that oil and gas don't exist anymore. Of course, there's also a lot of substitution from LNG from the US, and that's for sure. But the tendency that has been the result of the war has been also this one. Maybe not intended to be by the actors of this war, but the result of it has been that. And we have to register what the evidence are. So that's
So thank you very much. I ask the audience for another round of applause for our speakers. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, and from the audience are asking for a coffee break of 5 minutes, and then we are going to restart with the round table with Professor Aspromonte.
parlo da modero da lì. Poi ti siedi lì.
Okay, good morning everyone. I am Donatello Aspromonte. I am professor of startup strategy at Marconi University and responsible for the international MBA of this university. And I would invite the speaker of this round table, Roberto Allara, Head of Sales PMI SACE, Marco Santucci, CEO Jaguar Land Rover Italia, Erika Rastelli, Vice President Yes for Europe, Marco Bordin, Board Member Manageritalia, and connected via Zoom, Angelica Cristel Donati, President at Ance Giovane and Head of Business Development, Donati Group. In the first part of this conference, we had 3 keynote speeches, and from these speeches, I think that we had some insights about international trade. And Professor Masera gave us insight relating the ESG framework and the pollution relating the international transport. We have to consider that about 30% of carbon emission is related to the international transport. So the transition to a low carbon economy will require to support the effort to decarbonize the supply chain. We have seen from Marco Forgione, the Director General of the Institute of Export UK, how digitalization and the development of new technology can reduce barriers to the international trade and increase the economic benefit of export and international trade. All these elements are reshaping the international trade, and I would like to start this roundtable with Angelica Cristel Donati, talking about competencies and skills for the future. Angelica, what skills and competence we need to develop to respond to the new challenges of the international trade?
That's a very big question, and the answer is probably more than I'm able to give you. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me today, and I'm very sorry that I can't be there in person. I think, of course, you can't give a generic question across sectors, and it very much depends on what you do. If you're talking about trading in goods and services, or as we do, and I hope I don't get interpreted in the wrong way, in the construction sector, we trade people, because obviously when our companies work abroad, what we bring to the table, what we bring internationally is the know-how and the skills of the people that we have trained and have grown in Italy, and we bring them abroad, and then they work on international markets. But I would say that in this ever-changing and ever-evolving global ecosystem, the main skills that we need to bring internationally are digital skills. You can't really work in a world that is moving beyond 4.0 into a 5.0 mentality without having some very well-established digital skills, each for their own field. And obviously then, I mean, it's sad to say that here still today, but language skills are also very important. In Italy, we still very often, especially in our education system, don't drive home the importance of being able to speak the international language, which is English. And so even today, for example, in my position, I'm told that I'm the exception because I'm fluent in English. And I think that's another element that really is very important to drive home to the Italian market, that we need to be able to speak the same language when we go abroad, whether we go abroad because we bring services or whether we go abroad because we're selling products.
Thanks, Angelica. Marco Santucci, CEO Jaguar Land Rover Italia. What will be the impact of the ecological transition on the manufacturing sector, your sector?
Well,
This is a good question.
who knows? Well, certainly, I think it'll be a huge impact. I mean, the automotive sector is changing dramatically and will change in the next 5 years more than it has in the last 100 years. But we've heard this before in several of the very inspiring speeches that we've heard. I think what we need to realize is that automotive sector has already made the transition, has already committed. There is a lot of investments that have gone in, and a lot of them that have been planned to go in. I can talk, of course, with for my company, Jaguar Land Rover. We're planning to invest 15 billion pounds in the next 5 years. And this is nothing compared, we're a very small company compared to everything that's going in from all the other manufacturers around the world. And a little bit connecting to what has been said before, this is of course all in the ecological transition. I mean, all about electric cars, battery development, conversion of batteries, and software, by the way, which is extremely important connecting to everything that has been said. And if I relate back to what was said before, certainly as a country, Italy, we need to try to get a piece of this, investment. And there are huge opportunities to do that if we could have a vision, from an aligned vision from the country. I wouldn't say the government, but of course it's very, very important, long-term possibly, and without the continuous change in direction and continuous confusion that often we give to the market and the industry. Because probably if we had, if only the government would see where the money is going and would tell the industry and the market, this is, I wouldn't say inevitable, because we've heard it in various ways. It's the future, okay? It's something good for everybody. That's where we're going. It's going to be good. Mobility has changed dramatically. It's not 1960 anymore. You don't drive from Rome to Milan anymore. You don't, you take a fast train. You take a plane. Cars are used in a different way. Mobility is different. Cities are different. And it's going to further, change in the next 2 or 3 years, very, very rapidly. If we don't catch up, if we don't realize that, Germany, France, the other markets around Europe, not to mention China and US, will just, will let us leave into the, third world, will let us alone, just focus on our confusion on where the world is going. On the other hand, if we look at, where this money is going and what we're doing and what everybody is doing to transform the business into electrical, more sustainable mobility, it's easy to capture that part of the business. There's still a lot of it that has been, not tapped into. I would say conversion of batteries, for example. A lot of the discussion is, what are you going to do with the batteries under the car? Well, it's easy. I mean, we put solar panels on top of our roofs. But again, you would need somebody that aligns a vision with, laws or regulations and supports and incentives that allow us, first of all, to get rid of old car park. We have the oldest car park in Europe, more than 20 million cars, which are above 18 years old, which are very energy hungry or thirsty. They consume a lot, they emit a lot of CO2, and everything would go in the right direction. Conversion of batteries is one simple example of what we could do, where the business is still not evolved. Only Tesla is taking it. You would take batteries that have already been produced, which are less efficient on the cars, put them in the basements, and allow to store renewable energies. So I think, to respond to your question, I think there is a lot what we can do, but we need a little bit of direction, possibly from the government, that helps us connect with the vision that European Union has already had and announced.
And I would like to go on with you, because a simple question could be, what can we do to attract investment? Talking about incoming investment in our country.
Well,
what could be the strategy, the correct strategy?
Again, I can only speak for my small company, but what I see is that we're certainly doing everything we can to derail investments. So for telling companies like my company, don't come and invest in Italy. There is no reason for you to invest in, gigafactories or battery conversions or software of the future, because we don't believe in what you're saying the future will be, okay? Electrical sustainable, if you hear, again, the government, or you look at the political incentives that we have currently, we're not, even close to what the other countries around us, Germany, France, and so on, are doing to tell investors, well, we're doing a lot because we believe in ecological transition, and therefore you should come and invest in our market. If we don't do that, we're certainly not creating the right grounds for people to come and invest over here. This is one part of the story, of course. I also believe that once, even if we would have that, we would have other hurdles to go through, legal system or bureaucracy and so on. However, those are things that I think are existing everywhere. This is more about a vision where there's a lot of money around the world that are being invested in these things, and they are looking for places to do that.
Thanks. Roberto Allara, head of SME SACE, PME SACE. Roberto, how can we help our businesses and companies, SMEs, to foster abroad, to develop their export in a safety way and in a best way all around the world?
Yeah, thank you. First, some numbers about SME in Italy. 2,000 small and medium-sized business produce more or less 1,000 billion euro, is the 30% of our GDP. Employ 5.4 million people, 3% of the people in Italy that work. And good news, SME increased dramatically the productivity of the labor compared to Germany and Spain during the last 5 years. You know that SME is the important key point for the economy in Italy. They contribute in terms of economic, in terms of technology, and in terms of development of our country. And we know also that the equation export and grow is a fact. Our research department looked at all the companies, the SME, that invest in ESG transition and in digital transition, export more than 20% compared to the peers in her sector. My opinion, the goal, the answer of your question is a dual transition. Sustainable transition and digital transition. And this is the way because SACE include in his industrial plan 2003-2005 SME and ESG. But I don't know if we are. I heard all the point of in the previous panel. I don't know if you are in the right way. I know that we have to speed very quickly because market isn't able to help to wait us. This one is the problem. Large customers are starting to insert ESG constraint in the supply chain. The second point is that the credit institution, not today but tomorrow, link the capacity to give money to ESG level and rate of the companies. And this one could be the good news. Customer will decide to buy products that are provided by ESG companies. This one is the key point. Now, today, SACE has got 41,000 SME like a client. They buy education and product. And we think that the key point and the opportunity of the very rigid rule that Europe put in place in terms of ESG could be the way for SME to improve the capacity to take this opportunity in the market.
What will happen with the total adoption of ESG schemes?
Excuse me, I don't understand.
What will happen when all Italian companies has to adopt the ESG scheme?
Okay, the way we think that the first step is culture, education. They and the one part of our ecosystem ESG that we are building in such. The key point is to take the company have to know that they have to put in place this journey. The first point. And the second point is that this journey is impossible to do alone this journey. They have to, every and each company have to know that they have to open eyes compared to in front of the market. And there is a lot of companies, a lot of consultants that yet today are able to help SME to start with this journey. How many time? I think 3 years to implement a very good idea of ESG in the company. The second way, you have the instrument, and could be that in the next round I can talk about the service and the guarantee that such is able to put in place to help company to go in this way.
Okay, thanks Roberto. Erika Rastelli, Vice President, Yes for Europe, European Confederation of Young Entrepreneurs. Erika, regarding internationalization process, what do you think are the skills needed to face this turbulent scenario?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm very proud to represent all my colleagues from Confindustria Giovani. And yes, you were saying I represent with the Vice Presidency 100,000 young entrepreneurs in Europe. We have this Confederation of Young Entrepreneurs, and we are working to, keep our companies go on. And so I've been taking notes of what the speaker said before. So we are speaking about global uncertainty and the fact that trust is fundamental. So I would say that we work every day, and we do meetings, and we try to be as practical as possible to solve the new issues that we have been having as companies, especially after the COVID. Managing our companies is very different today. The laws that there were until COVID have been changing in the last 2 years. So the things that we have to face today regarding the challenging in going abroad and also being in Italy are very different. We are having many people coming in Italy that are not Italian, so we have to manage it and do politics for it. I come from Abruzzi, the same region from Mr. Forgione. He was speaking about going fast. Today, the only means coming here for me was car or bus. So we are also working in making Europe be the same wherever you are, not much difference between south and north. We have to be equal and have at least the same means of transportation. And we organize meetings for all our entrepreneurs, and we try to work in a global way. I've just come back from Turkey, where we planned the next G20 summit that will take place in Brazil next July. So what we do is write down policies that we want to submit to the politicians that then meet after us around the table, the important table, and we want them to take into consideration our point of view. If there is a G20, as Mrs. Passarelli said, we are the number 8 economy in the world. No? and the second in Europe. We hope that we are, at least in my sector, overcoming Germany soon. We are second after Germany, and what we do is work for new business opportunity, global digitalization, also Angelica Cristel said this, and also, of course, we have to take into consideration the climate change. We already spoke about it. How can we do it? Through ESG, through circular economy, and we are putting effort and investment in our company in order to sustain this process, because this changing process needs lots of our money to become reality. So we have a little time to arrive to 2030, and of course sustainability must be our priority. I don't tell this just because I own a company, I tell and because I represent my colleagues, but also as a mom. If I want to think about the future of my son, I would like him to live in a world that is, you know, able to host them, my children, in a proper way, okay? As I was hosted. I lived in Abruzzo, as I said, and it's a green region, beautiful, and we have to keep working. You know, when we wake up in the morning, what we do is we pollute. Because in order to manufacture in my company, I have to switch on the machine. Actually, they never switch off. And so we keep polluting. So what we can do with ESG is try to have the least impact possible. Of course, not switching off our machine, but doing many things to try to reduce our impact.
Thanks, Erika. Marco Bordin, Manageritalia, board member at Manageritalia and sales director at Anritsu. Marco, could you introduce Manageritalia, to present Manageritalia, and I would like to say how critical is the improvement of competencies for the Manageritalia community members?
Thank you, Donatello, for giving me the chance to, first of all, to bring the regards of our president. Manageritalia is the national organization of the manager, executive, high professional in the commerce, service, tourism, and advanced sector. In our opinion, this kind of partnership event, that's the reason why we are also sponsoring this event, are very, very relevant for us, also for our community. As a manager in high-tech sector personally, I think this kind of event where we are, let's say, try to shape the future, understand what are the trends, how we can address the emerging needs and the let's say, critical issue that we have to face, it's really important. We are doing this in our community. We are 42,000 managers in Italy, so small numbers compared to the numbers of my colleagues, but still I think relevant in the Italian community. So for our members, we are driving many different, let's say, initiatives. I would like just to mention two of these initiatives because I think are relevant also in this trend of ESG. The first one is try to support our members in the internationalization process. Every member which is normally, let's say, a manager which could be an expat, so working from Italy, moving to another country, needs some support, some assistance. So this is one of the initiative that we are sponsoring, is this worldwide manager, which is, let's say, an help desk and a support initiative for all the managers that are moving abroad from Italy. The companies opening a new branch office in, I don't know, South Africa, and they have to deal with all the stuff which typically a manager or a person with a family need to deal with when moving abroad. And this is, let's say, a quite successful initiative. We are getting more and more requests because the internationalization process is becoming really pervasive. All the sector, not only the high tech, but also the, let's say, the food sector is expanding abroad. So this is something which is really a tendency, a common tendency. Another kind of initiative we are putting in place is a cycle of seminars, webinar, to be honest, which we named The Other Side of the Hill. So the aim of this cycle of seminar is to make, let's say, a spotlight on different emerging markets, emerging geographical areas, countries, where we think that for our associate and the company our associates are working for could be relevant for the next expansion. In the past, in the last couple of years, we did some initiatives covering Russia and China, which could be, let's say, the standard. But recently we covered USA, Miami in particular, specifically, Canada, Dubai, Israel, and so a lot of different areas where we see emerging needs and trends to have, let's say, some better knowledge, better understanding of the local market, the local culture. For our associates, it's really important when they start dealing with a local counterpart, also to understand what are the, let's say, the peculiarity, the cultural thing that must be relevant and taken into account when you are dealing with people from different culture in different areas with different, let's say, traditions. This is really important. We are seeing a lot of, let's say, positive comment from our members about this kind of initiatives. Then, of course, the third area is to support really the company which our manager is working for in the expansion plan. So in this case, we can facilitate the, let's say, the contact between the company and some consultant or expert that can drive this expansion to other areas. And this is also, Donatello, just to wrap up, also one of the reasons why we are here and we are sponsoring this event, because we think that this is the first, let's say, the first line where we need to be to share this message and to make sure that we are all together working in the same direction.
And Marco, as a senior professional now, as manager of Arrizzo, what are the critical skills you are looking for when you are hiring young people?
Yeah, that's interesting. Now I'm putting my second hat as a sales director of a Japanese corporation. For a Japanese corporation, really there is an important, let me say, mission when hiring people, because normally the Japanese company tend to have, let's say, the longest possible period to have the people on board. So for them it's really crucial, the selection, but also the mentorship process, let's say the way you are building the long-term partnership of this new guy on board. So there are two aspects. First is the hiring process, which changed dramatically in the last years. Normally, in the past, we were hiring people locally in each country. I'm giving you just, let's say, the real experience. In each country, we were hiring people locally to build let's say, the local office and to run the local business. Now we are switching to more, let's say, open-minded young guys from different universities. Typically, we are hiring maybe an Italian guy in Slovakia, then asking him after a training period to move to UK, because there is a need in UK. When the project is over there, maybe we can propose him a new challenge in a different area. So the way we are now selecting the resources is totally different. We really need to have people that are ready to take the challenge, and that's also, let's say, difficult to match with the, let's say, the Japanese mindset, because it's a bit different. And the second challenge is to retain these people, because we are investing a lot in the training, in their, let's say, path into the company. So it's really also key element to make sure that the plan that we build around these new young resources really tailored in the best way to grant that the long period will stay with us. I would say that compared to, let's say, 5 years ago, we had normally a review plan which was taking maybe was updated every 2-3 years. Now we are updating the plan twice a year. That's the dramatic change in terms of how important it is to retain the people that we are on board.
Thanks, Marco. Angelica Donati. The second question is more specific on your sector, the real estate sector. And the question is, how is the real estate sector changing in international context, and what challenges and opportunities you can foresee now?
So I just want to follow up on what Erica was saying before, because I think it pertains to our sector. Actually, it definitely does pertain to our sector. The built environment and the construction sector together make up around 40% of CO2 emissions in Europe and 36% of waste production. And so for us, the next frontier, the next objective and the next challenge is to be sustainable. This is something that is pervasive across the world because of, well, general guidelines for global citizenship, but not only. As we know, we have climate emission targets that we need to adhere to, and in Italy, we signed up to the European Green New Deal as part of our prerequisites to deploy the funds, or to obtain and then deploy the funds for the what we call the PNRR in Italian, the National Recovery Fund plan. And so we need to adhere to Fit for 55, and we need to adhere to net zero in 2050. But on top of that, we also know that, and this is more kind of real estate focused, we also know that there is a European directive coming for green buildings, which mirrors the Green New Deal deal, for want of a better word, that was signed in 2019. And so we need to bring our emission levels down. We need to bring our emission levels down, again, by 55% by 2030 and 100%. So we need to be net zero, we need to be carbon neutral by 2050. And what this basically means, in a domestic context, of course, because we're talking about the Italian real estate sector, we're talking about the Italian built environment, is that we will need to intervene over the next few years onto at least 50% of all buildings in Italy. Of course, this also adds on to our sustainable building practices. So the fact that our goal is to only build ZEBs, so zero emission buildings, but that's kind of the easy part. So you need to plan to build in a sustainable way. We all try, well, developers try to achieve LEED Platinum certifications, etc., etc. But the hard part of the equation is what we do with our existing built environment. And what we need to do with our existing built environment is very clear. There will be European regulation very soon that will then be applied to each national, to each country in Europe, which has some very clear guidelines of what needs to be done. Now, in a country like Germany, it's very easy. Germany only has to act on around 4% of its buildings to reach these goals, because Northern European countries, and if you go to Scandi countries, the numbers are even higher. They already build in a very sustainable way because they need to conserve heat in winter. And so they've already planned this out autonomously. In Southern Europe, in countries like Italy, which are, thank God, because it's our biggest wealth, it's our biggest source of wealth. We are old countries with old buildings, with a lot of historic sites, a lot of sites that predate, actually 70% of all buildings in Italy predate the 1970s seismic and energy efficiency regulations. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And this is also very important to consider. And you were asking me in an international context, in the international landscape, because we have a much bigger burden going forward than a lot of other countries in Europe that we then compete with on all sorts of different sectors, which of course are not real estate. But as a country, we need to invest in this as a primary focus, and we can't think to leave families, companies on their own, because you can't reach this high scale of investment without public contribution.
Thanks, Angelica. Marco Santucci, also for you a question on competencies and skills, because this is the title of our conference. Which competencies are required today in the manufacturing sector, in your sector?
It depends on where you look, of course, which country. But one of the things
in Italy.
In Italy, In Italy specifically, we have, well, we had one specific competence, which now became two. When everybody talks about, how electrification will eradicate and will kill jobs, we actually are exactly the opposite. We're creating job positions. So we're a commercial company, so what we need is commercial skills. And going ahead, we've seen and heard about the artificial intelligence and how is that going to change the landscape. We need to have more skills, and we look more and more often for soft skills instead of hard skills, because that's what you can learn. Soft skills is a different thing, and I believe that the world in the future will be divided into who teaches the machines what to do and who is taught by the machines or told by the machines what to do. So from that perspective, commercial skills which are able to instruct machines and train machines as well as create experiences are still something that will be very valuable in the future. However, what we've heard before from Angelica, and certainly I believe in, the digital world and that landscape is completely evolving. So what we've done, something I'm very, very proud of, is and something that probably COVID has allowed us to do, and before it was even unthinkable, we developed software for the future. I mean, electric cars are going to be and are always more, like computers that are on wheels. Now, to do that and to go to autonomous driving, which will be, by the way, another thing I believe in is, cars that will not allow you to kill yourself on the road anymore. Today we have, it's like a war, honestly. We have in Italy 9 deaths every day and 150 people severely injured. The only way to take that out of the equation is to allow the cars to drive on their own and not to allow people to make mistakes, which is the biggest source of accidents that can happen. The only way to get to autonomous driving is, of course, to get a car that is completely safe and, in terms of technology is a lot more evolved than what we have today. Honestly, we're close to that level already, and then there is another theme, about responsibility and so on, so that opens up. However, we'll get there sooner or later. It won't take that much. Now, in order to do that, traditionally what manufacturers used to do is attract people that have those competencies into their world. VW in Germany, American manufacturer in the US, us, Jaguar Land Rover in the UK. By the way, honestly, I wouldn't go there. I mean, in the Midlands and in the middle of nowhere, how can you attract a 30-year-old, 25-year-old engineer, very, very requested and talented, to go in the middle of nowhere and abandon his girlfriend or wife and kids? Now, with COVID, we turned that around completely. What we do is create engineering hubs around the world, including Italy. We've hired already 35 new engineers, and we're looking for other ones with specific skills. What would you look for in Italy? Of course, people who know how to code to park the car, because honestly, that's a challenge in Italy, or to drive autonomously, in Naples. So what they do is they work from anywhere on digital software creation for new cars. And what's fascinating is that in the moment in which they develop the software, they test it in Iceland if it's requested to be tested in extreme temperatures, analyze it in the UK, get the feedback back in Torino, and work with their colleague in Padova, and eventually correct the code that is required. So it's accelerating in an incredible way. We are taking talents in Italy, which we have, by the way, because we're really good at some of these things, and luckily we can hire more people. So that's one world that we are seeing as a potential evolution, and we will see more of.
Thanks, Marco. Erika, as a young entrepreneur, you are Vice President of Yes for Europe, Giovani Confindustria, but you are shareholder of Aran World. That is a company based in Abruzzo, in Pescara, I think, Teramo. And as an entrepreneur, what are the difficulties you encounter in your daily work on international markets?
Yeah, I'm Chief People Officer, not shareholder at the moment. So my father is the president. We are 5 children. Yeah. I'm the first daughter, and 3 of us are in the company at the moment. I would say that the first challenge today is to, risk, let's say, is this situation with the wars. I mean, what we aim for is a stable government that allow us to work or to return from the investment we do. Think the real moment now, I have 4 markets that are completely stuck, and they don't seem they are going to go on pretty soon. So I would say that one first challenge for us is this geopolitical situation, because from the governments depend our capability to do business in the markets. And second thing, after COVID, we had a big boost because people had time to stay at home and to appreciate or not appreciate what they had around. So we have been having lots of work after COVID because many people wanted to renew their kitchens, their wardrobes, their walk-in closets, their office furniture at home, because they were doing smart working much more than before. So we had to, we could have the chance to work on that, but now we have to keep going on because this has finished, and what we face now is, the increase of the price of the raw materials, and we have been, all of us, I think, have been dealing with this, and also the fact that the skills needed today to work in the international market are different from the skills that we needed before COVID. Research of For Manager says that until 2026 in Italy we will need 4 million of workers with green skills. I can tell, working in human resources, that there is a mismatch between what I ask and what people skills are when they come to an interview with me. I need something that is difficult to find, or maybe is not possible to find, because also the market of the workers has been changing a lot in Europe after COVID. People look more for free time, for part-time jobs, and being manufactured, this is a big challenge, because if we have a line of production and we need somebody to build our kitchen for 8 hours, so I cannot give the worker maybe today what they want from me. So we have to meet at some point and keep going. So this means a little bit of sacrifice from the company in investing in wealth, in well-being, and we hope to find the solution, and I'm sure that we will find the solution to keep being international. We export in 120 countries. And one last thing I say is that the ability of the Italian company to adapt themselves when they travel all around the world has been making our Made in Italy what it is now, which is loved, and people love us because we are ambassador of, look at this, look at the roof of this room. Like, we are ambassador of the beauty, we are the ambassador of, I think Italian beauty is unreachable for all our competitors. So knowing this, I think we will keep leading in this market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erika. Roberto, allora, the last question is for you. And talking about SACE and the measures that you have, what could be the way to deal with this turbulent scenario? What tools and measures could be activated for Italian companies that want to expand their own business abroad?
Yeah, the first point, I think that the key point is that the companies can't talk with us, with the market, and they can't explain the way to do business in these tenses that is quite common in Italy before COVID, is we have always done it this way. Okay. Market change dramatically, and the opportunity change. When a company have to present his offer, the key point of the offer are three: the product, the delivery time, and the way to pay. And usually in Italy, an Italian company, when we talk about export, and they ask payment in advance, or 30% in advance, and 70% on delivery. Just an example, we have, for instance, a French client that have an offer, Italian company offer, and Spanish company offer. The product is good, the beauty is a power, but isn't the unique way, because if the beauty is the unique way, Italy have got the 100% of the market, but I'm sorry, we don't have the 100% of the market. And this French guy look the Italian offer, the product is good, the delivery time is good, but the way to pay is not good. The Spanish company, the product is good, quite good, but good. The delivery time is good, and in the proposal is right within 19 days. This means that if the French guy is a company that sell wine, is able to pay the Italian producer with the money that the client pay him for the wine. I think that is education. The key point in Italy is education. And don't think in the same way that we think in AT. The world is changed. And the instrument, we have a lot of instruments to cover this. This is an example, the French offer, to explain that a lot of time we don't take the opportunity of the market because we don't know the market, and the capacity for the Italian company are focused on the core business, okay, wine, oil, but they aren't able to, not generalization, it's I talk about the Italy market, not the single entrepreneur. They aren't focused on the services and the policy that you have to build around the company, around the core business, to put in place all the instruments to continue this success. I love a lot when we talk about ESG that the point is the success sustainable, not the economic sustainable, but the success sustainable. I think that this way could be the real way. About, for instance, Green New Deal, we talk about Green New Deal, and such is an actor of the Green New Deal because we counter guarantee 80% of the banking line that the banks give to the company to put in place the investment about Green New Deal in the European taxonomy. Is an instrument a lot of companies know, but a lot of companies don't know this instrument. The banks aren't always able to push and use this instrument that we are on the table to put in place this sustainable success.
Thanks Roberto, thanks our speaker, thanks Roberto Allara, Marco Santucci, Erika Rastelli, Marco Bordin, thanks Angelica, Crystal Donati, bye. And I'm happy to give the floor to Arturo Lavalle and Daniela Turicchi. So please.
So I take the occasion to thank all the speakers, or the previous speakers as well. on behalf of the university. I think that the roundtable was very interesting, and I recall just one aspect of what they said, which is about the importance of soft skills, especially digital cultural awareness, because understanding people is very important, from the street markets to the most international scenarios. Anyway, in order to push those skills, we are delivering and providing this master in export and international trade management. This is the concluding session that I'm very glad to share with Daniela Turicchi, who is an Academy Deputy Manager from the Institute of Export and International Trade UK. And I would like to start this final session with a short video. So I ask the director to send the video if it's possible. We produce a very short video about this master. If it's not possible, we can go ahead. It's not a problem. That was a very that's fine. I think we already watched it. So this is a very short video just to show what are the main skills and competencies that are inside the master, and of course cultural awareness is one of them, because only a combination of hard and soft skills can of course can help reaching the objectives of forming people in this field. We are particularly proud of the collaboration with the Institute for various reasons. Our university is undergoing a phase of significant expansion in which the international component plays a quite important role. We are now implementing an international strategy which is aligned with a fundamental concept, which is diversification. So diversification in our course catalog, targeting overseas students, with especially in the postgraduate segment, with new pathways provided in English, but not only, also in Greek, in Spanish, and covering diverse fields, even focusing of the so-called Made in Italy, for example, with 2 new masters in design, business management, and fashion and business management. Diversification in the educational delivery mode, giving our students the possibility to attend our programs in an asynchronous way, or in a synchronous way, like in this case, or in a hybrid form, or fully in presence, thanks to our facilities and also the international students dormitory that is hosted in this building at the 3rd floor. Again, diversification of the target areas through the identification of 4 macro regions of interest for us. And we were talking about this before with Alessandra Pastorelli. 4 macro regions, which are, of course, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, with a focus of Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. And diversification of the university mission itself. You know, the current scenario is characterized by 2 prevailing trends. On the one hand, that there is a decline of the era in which we specialized and trained for our entire working life, often keeping the same professional skills, and we have entered a period in which the constant rapid change requires innovation skills and also a constant updating process. And the second one is that we are assisting to an evolution of the production sector. We said before, we heard before about that, with an increase in digital content enabled by the pervasive technologies, artificial intelligence, machine-to-machine communication, machine-man interaction. So the educational offer of higher education institutions and of our institution has to be reoriented and enriched, and we have to align our programs with the ongoing changes, with their connections with the real world and their implications with the global economy. And I think that the collaboration with the Institute of Export touches all the aspects of such a diversification in content and language, because we didn't have a master of this kind, and not even in English, of course. In the educational delivery mode, because we are going to provide this master in live streaming, so in a synchronous way, not in a asynchronous way as the other masters that we offer, with the perspective of offer it also in a hybrid form, with people coming to Rome and to London as well. And of course also in the quality, relevance and effectiveness of the contents, thanks to the combination of the expertise of experts from the Institute and our professors. So expertise that is perfectly complementary. And we are going to start this collaboration in a sector which is crucial for the economies of our two respective countries. So I leave the floor to Daniela.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So uni-Marconi and IOE and IT have been collaborating on this, well, in conversations for roughly about 6 to 8 months at the moment, just to ensure the qualifications meet the requirements of Italian and UK-based regulations. So during this collaboration, the modules were split relating to the expertise of both organisations. So it's the Masters in Export Management and International Trade. This will comprise of 6 modules, which will be 240 hours plus 50 hours for a student project. This will commence in January, February 2024 for approximately 1 year. So the 6 modules, they're basically split 3 and 3 between both companies. The IOE have taken the module 1, 3 and 5. So this is the fundamentals of international business, international logistics, purchasing, distribution, transportation and documentation, and legal finance and risk management. uni-Marconi has taken module 2, 4 and 6, which covers the environmental global marketplace analysis, the international trade management and marketing strategy, and the export management in the age of digitalization. So across these, there's various aspects of each module. They're all covering roughly 40 hours per module. They will cover a broad knowledge of understanding of the conditions which international trade must operate in, covering contracts, sale of goods, agency law. There will be strategic analysis, market analysis and competitive strategy, and global accounting. We'll also look at the multidisciplinary approach across different global markets, and this will be in the planning, execution and oversight of activities relating to the exchange of goods and services between the countries. We will also focus on the sources of finance to maximise profits, evaluate and attempt to reduce risks, and the appropriate methods of payments for each different country. So at the end of this 6 modules, there will be 50 hours for the student project. This will be assigned by the scientific committee of the Masters, each student having up to 5 hours available in one-to-one meetings. The project length will be 40 to 60 pages, and this will help welcome the knowledge gathered throughout the course to work towards the end of that qualification. From this, we look forward to a prosperous future collaborating with UniMarconi. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Daniela. We were very quick, but of course this is, as I told you, the last session of the day. I don't know if there are questions about that. Otherwise, I think we can consider concluded this day. And I find that this meeting, this event was very interesting, very inspiring. With a high level quality of our speakers. So I would like to thank Donatello Spromonte for his help and support, and for the coordination of all the activities. And of course, I remind you a very important thing: there is a lunch waiting for you, just going out on the left. So thanks a lot. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to the audience that followed us up to now. See you next time.